Hey, Marty, Jimmy said to go ahead that his mic's not responding. So you might wait for three and then go.
3 seconds. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Marty Watts with American Talk It Up, and we've got another great show today. I've got a substitute co host today, Wally Dragmeister, who's going to be substituting for Ed Nunes, who's doing a double hitter today for the state basketball tournament in New Mexico. Eh, So, Wally, welcome to the show. I almost said Ed. So, welcome to the show, Wally.
Hey, Marty, great to be here. A lot of exciting things to talk about today.
So, since you and I talk about the political situation in New Mexico and on the national scene, Ed's more into sports. So, what we want to do today is talk about what's going on with the border, what's going on with New Mexico. We just came out this last week, no growth. What was the final growth of the census? I think it was less than what, 1%, Wally? The growth in New Mexico?
2.8% over the last decade, 2.8% over a 10-year period.
And in my opinion, that's terrible. That tells you our economy is pretty stagnant, and it's really related to government growth. As you know, a good percentage of our population works for the government, the federal, the county, the city, state. It's not very good. I think we're one of four states. We're one of the highest in the country, Wally.
Yeah, our ratio of number of dollars that we send to Washington compared to the number of dollars come back, we're one of the worst or best, depending on whether you think government money is a good thing. But yeah, we get a lot of money from Washington, and we don't send a lot in. And then when you look at New Mexico, federal, state, local, tribal, in other forms of government, it's a huge part of our economy. And one of the issues and one of the challenges is with that is that government, like any industry, can come and go. Right now, we're no offense to drunk monkeys or drunken sailors in San Diego, but we're spending money like crazy at the federal level, and if and when that turns around and goes the other direction, it could be a big negative for the state of New Mexico. Right now, we're getting a lot of money in, but we haven't done much to build that private sector over the last 10 years. And that's a real challenge. And the real biggest reason, I think, is the underlying factors that have not contributed to business growth, have followed along and not contributed to population growth. So look to the north. Colorado grew by way more. Arizona grew by way more. Texas grew by way more. I mean, with the Four Corners, we touch Utah in 1 point. We grew a lot slower than them. So we grew a lot slower than our neighbors in surrounding states.
And what does that tell you? Young people are leaving the state of New Mexico. They're not staying here. And then another thing is we're one of the few states that tax senior citizens for Social Security. Why would you want to retire in New Mexico if you're going to get double taxed, right, Wally?
Yeah, and that is an interesting point. Is that demographically, New Mexico is getting to be a relatively old state. Our average age population keeps going up because, as you say, a number of factors. Not a lot of people are having children percentage-wise, and a lot of the people who do move here are retirees, but a lot of that younger, the millennials and the generation on either side of them have moved on to greener pastures for jobs and economic purposes. And so that all of that has an impact on New Mexico. But if you're a retiree, hey, it's a beautiful place. We all talk about the weather. It's some of the most spectacular weather anywhere in the world, really. But that's not the only factor. And yes, we tax Social Security. That does not send a very positive message that, hey, we want you to come and retire here in New Mexico, and we'll take some of your Social Security in retirement. And then the other issue is that, we have gross receipts tax that taxes everything. And, I'm not sure that's a biggie on the mind of retirees, but that's been a real drag I think, on our economy and economic development. What a weird, unique tax that is. And if you'll just indulge me, I'll put my tax nerd hat on for a minute. A lot of people don't realize that, they call it sales tax. And when you buy goods in New Mexico, our gross receipts tax looks a lot like a sales tax that lots and lots of places have. Not everywhere, but most states will have that. But we tax services and we tax business services as inputs. So, we get this layering effect. So, Marty, if I get a business service from somebody, say a contractor in Los Lunas, New Mexico is doing work for me over the internet, and they have to charge me gross receipts tax, 7, 8, 9%. Whereas if I used a contractor in Texas or Arizona or Colorado, they wouldn't necessarily have to charge that tax to me. So that's a big drag on businesses here in the state.
And the other thing I was going to tell you, Wally, we are, I think, one or three states we have the highest level of unemployment that are taking unemployment insurance right now. As you know, that's killing the restaurant business because the worst case scenario, they're getting about $1,800 to $1,900 a month. That's more than they would be maybe working at a restaurant as a server, or whatever, or a $14 to $15 hour job. What do you think of that? Well,
yeah, no, unemployment it's a very interesting thing. So a couple of things. New Mexico, our approach to the COVID was one of the more stringent in terms of shutting and keeping small businesses down during that. We're not unique, but the other states like California and Michigan and New York took similar approaches, and they had high unemployment. And so New Mexico is right there with them. We had high unemployment, and then as we come out of COVID, we have more unemployed to begin with. And then, as you said, we have the additional $300 a week coming from the feds for unemployment insurance. And so for a lot of jobs, you may not make 100% of what you made for doing nothing, but you get a lot of people are like, I got a pretty good deal here with this unemployment insurance. I don't necessarily want to go back to work. And we're seeing it in industry after industry, including places that you're right. It's really hurting restaurants and hospitality, but it's hurting everybody. You see in the trucking business, government entities are having a hard time finding some of their lower level and entry level jobs, not necessarily. You usually don't have trouble filling those $120,000 a year jobs, but we're talking, $15, $20 an hour jobs. And even government's having a tough time filling those. Now, when that, if and when, and I say if because it's not impossible that Congress would extend that, but if they extend that benefit, we may have a hard time getting people back to work. And boy, that's a real struggle for the businesses that want to hire people and need to hire people because there's demand out there. So, there's a lot of things. I'm calling it, starting to call it the COVID hangover, if you will. There's these effects that, when we're in the midst of all these COVID policies, we weren't necessarily thinking about them. I was, not to brag, but, I've always been thinking about these, but they weren't first and foremost in people's mind. But now as we come out, it's like, we have people that don't want to come to work because they're getting paid good money not to work. And what's that going to do to our recovery? And again, particularly since New Mexico had very high unemployment to begin with, we've got it worse than states surrounding us like Texas that were much more open during the, what will we say, the policies that were implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic.
So just a perfect example, excuse me, guys. Perfect example. I've got a customer. I don't mind putting it's called Global Protection Service. And they have a contract with Netflix to do the security on all the new movies they're doing on site. And by the way, if you're watching this podcast, look him up, Global Protection Service. He's looking to hire people right now. He needs to hire 30 to 40 people. He has a contract with Netflix to do security. and he's having problems right now. He came on as one of our sponsors for ProView Network, and his whole 30-second ad was pleading people to come work for him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Not asking for new business. And so I'm using him as example because he's a really great guy, Adrian Chavez. If somebody's looking for work, he has places to put you on right now. And with that saying, Wally, that's typical out there right now.
Yeah, you can't, I live in the southeast heights of Albuquerque, and you can't, I can't drive anywhere. From my part of town, whether I head west on Central or head north on Juan Tabo, you see almost every business that is open has a help wanted sign out there. And so, yeah, this is a pretty wide problem. And yeah, we'll have to see what happens. The other thing that, Marty, that's happening is that businesses that have historically not done this are paying signing bonuses. And I've heard of some in Albuquerque that are even paying interview bonuses because they can't even get people to come to the interviews. So they'll pay you to come interview for their job. And so, yeah, it's things are tough out there from the employer point of view. And what's going to happen? Hopefully that $300 will go away. The reason it was there during the pandemic is there weren't as many jobs. Now there are jobs there for the people that want them. But, Marty, I don't know. It's not impossible that I'm the only human that has a lazy bone in my body. And, it's one of those, maybe if I was getting paid to do nothing, would I want to get out there and get a job? I have a feeling maybe not. You know what I mean? So I can't say it's that hard to understand. There's a saying in economics and public policy: you don't get what you want, you get what you incentivize. Well, what have we incentivized? We've incentivized people to not work, and guess what? It's working pretty well.
Well, that $300 runs out to the first week in September, so I hope they don't renew it. Unless there's extreme cases, people need unemployment. I understand that part of it. But with that saying, we have high unemployment going into this thing, and now we've got people who don't want to go back to work because why not? If they can sit on they don't have to do it. And now they'll probably be forced to do something by September. Obviously, I hope they don't push it out any longer than September, because I think it's creating a lot of these situations like with Global Protection Service. They're looking for workers. And, with that saying, let's get back to the cause of this problem in the state of New Mexico. And you don't have to say anything, but I don't mind saying it because I've been here since 1960. I've been around politics in the state. I've seen 5 different governors that I knew personally. And one party has dominated the state since 1930. They've controlled the state house, the state senate. We've only had, I think, 5 Republican governors, but they've never had control of the House or Senate. This state's been
they had the House a few years ago for 2 years, but they didn't have the Senate, and that was the first time. That was a break of a lot of years. So, yeah.
They had some coalition Democrats joining them.
Yeah, well, and they had, yes, that was, there was some of that in the 70s and 80s, as I recall. I mean, I follow politics, not maybe as much as I do today. But, yeah, you'd have to say that if this were the Harlem Globetrotters and the Washington Generals, the Republican Party's been the Washington Generals of that game. They have not been the leaders. They've not been the winners in terms of holding seats overall for a long, long time. And then, Marty, recently, there was once a time where we had the Pete Domenicis as one of our U.S. senators. Years before him, we had Harrison Schmitt, Jack Schmitt, the astronaut, was a one-term senator. We had a few more Republicans in elected office. Steve Schiff in the first congressional district here in the Albuquerque area, very strong, solid, awesome political leader. I don't use political and leader together too much, but he was really one. But we haven't really seen any kind of Republicans to speak of. And as we look across the state of New Mexico, there's very few. Yvette Herrell is kind of the only one on the national, in Congress. And I believe the last I heard, the mayor of Rio Rancho was the next ranking elected political official in the state of New Mexico as a Republican.
Well, the problem is we have a progressive state. We have a lot of people who are more left leaning, or you call it liberal leaning, but it's not helping. They have not done any good. If you want to go by a track record, their track record of running the state since 1930 is terrible. Now, I can go back to Bruce King, and there's been some Democrat governors I actually liked. I got along with them, and they did some good. But their performance is terrible, and the way things are going, the way unemployment, and we're 48 in almost everything, education, everything in this economy. We're down at the bottom of the 50 now. Why are people continue going into the booth and voting for the Democrats? I don't understand it. Now, you could fault the Republicans for not coming up with better candidates or not getting their issues out, but really the people who are controlling this state is the moderates. About 40% of the populations are pretty much traditional conservative, and that's where the Republicans get most of their strength. And then about, I would say 25-30% of the moderates, the rest are the extremists or the liberals, and it's the moderates that win this race. And we have to convince those people. Now, here's the other problem we have, and we brought this issue in the early part of this podcast, is that a big percentage of the population is working for the government. And as you know, none of these state workers or city workers or county or federal, nobody's getting a pay cut. They're not sacrificing. Nobody's taking a 10% cut. Well, if the people who are hurting out there are the entrepreneurs, people are trying to make the restaurant owners, a lot of small businesses, and they're the ones that are taking in the chin. But the fact is, the governor knows that she has a high percentage of her voters are government employees, or they work for the government, and that's her base. And unless the Republicans can cut into that, it's tough. That's why it's tough.
Oh, no doubt it's tough. And then, Marty, let me talk to you about something I've been thinking about a little bit, is that, thank you for Mr. Producer for putting a note in the chat, because I've been talking about this for the last couple of weeks. But, a lot of people during the COVID-19 pandemic have been moving out of states like New York and California, and moving from urban areas to rural areas. I was up in the Taos area over the weekend, and just for giggles and grins, sitting there one morning, I was on the Wi-Fi at the place we were staying, looking at Realtor.com, and there are the prices of houses in places like Taos, New Mexico, has gone sky high. They're going through the roof, and there's tons of contingent offers out there. I have a feeling it's people trying to sell homes in places like California to move here. But there's two forces I want to talk about, and they go against each other. The first is because we have been so shut down, I think that from a business point of view, not necessarily from a people looking to buy homes and, going to the rural areas and nice places that are more rural, we have lost out on a lot of the businesses that are leaving California and Illinois and New York, because we've been so shut down as well. But then, so you'd say that's not necessarily a good thing. We've got maybe the double whammy of COVID. Now, the other factor, though, is that some states that are getting a lot of people from California, will they go? Why are they leaving California? They don't like the politics, and they don't like the taxes, and they don't like the crime. But we've seen in places like Texas that have had a lot of transplants, it goes increasingly liberal and progressive. So a lot of the same policies that might have been implemented in a place like Oregon or California now might be implemented in a place like starting off Austin, Texas, which had a big head start, but we're seeing more places. It doesn't take that many people to turn a place like Wyoming from a Republican stronghold to maybe a moderate place, and within a few years, maybe a progressive, interesting place. So yeah, there's a lot at foot, and politics isn't everything, Marty. But man, it seems like most aspects of our lives now, whether it be socially, business, taxation, law enforcement, it's incredible what a kind of political positioning and divide has come across in our country. And New Mexico is no different. We're maybe not as bad. I always, we used to say what when we're 48th or 49th, thank goodness for Mississippi. That's why we're not 50th, or Alabama, or there's a few other states that were that way. Well, thank goodness for California. We haven't done as many crazy things as California's done, but we've started to do our fair share. And so I do think that puts us at further economic risk. And then one point I'd like to hear your take on: New Mexico hasn't grown. No question about it. One of the things I think about, and I think it has to do some with government employees, not needing necessarily to get more customers and grow their businesses to have economic success. But there's always been this anti-growth sentiment in large parts of New Mexico. The last person in wants to close the door, and we don't want any more growth. And we've seen that in Santa Fe, the city of Santa Fe County, and other places. But we've always been real fond, and there's been governors in the past on both sides that have touted how friendly we were to business and how business positive we were. But when I talk to people around the country that are expanding into multiple states, again, this is not a scientific study, but the anecdotes I hear is we're not nearly as business friendly as we'd like to convince ourselves compared to places like Utah, Texas, and even our northern neighbor that is Democrat controlled of Colorado.
So let's talk about yesterday was a big announcement in Rio Rancho, New Mexico. Intel announced they're going to spend billions of dollars to retool the Intel factory there. Of course, they got a lot of incentives from the state of New Mexico and Sandoval County, but the only reason they're doing that is they already got a facility in place. They spent billions of dollars over the last 40 years, and they got a place where if they had to go out and build another facility, it would cost them a lot more. So it's going to create 1,000 construction jobs for the next year, and I guess they're going to add another 700 employees. Now that's good for New Mexico, but think about it: if that facility wasn't there, would they really come to New Mexico? They were in a situation where New Mexico, and plus New Mexico gave them all these more tax incentives. So in some ways, yeah, it's great. And it's going to be great for the economy of Rio Rancho because they need a boost up there. And I'm really happy. And by the way, that's a Republican mayor that's right, that really promoted that. But think about Intel. Would they have come here if they didn't have the infrastructure already here? All they have to do is retool the plant.
Yeah, and that's a very good question, Marty. You'd have to say the answer is maybe, maybe not. But the thing about that plant is, the semiconductor business and the related technology business, it requires continual investment, and the amount of investment that Intel's been making in places like Chandler, Arizona, and the greater Phoenix area has been dwarfing the investment made in New Mexico, and the number of employees has been steadily dropping, year after year after year, to the point where it was really, a lot of people recently have been concerned that, yeah, this was it, a couple more years and that plant will not have any operations and they'll leave New Mexico completely. The fact that they're putting $3.5 billion in, that's fantastic. They're spending roughly 20 times that, in Arizona, but it's good news for New Mexico. And hopefully it'll, get that plant back on track to be, a little higher in the investment, the investment process as they make those decisions. So, yeah, I think it's good news because, yeah, not only maybe wouldn't they have come there again, a lot of people, including me, were concerned they weren't going to be there at all. But now, at least for a few more years, depending on how quickly the technology changes, they'll be there, building facilities and producing technology products. And by the way, computer chips of various kinds are in short supply worldwide, and they're slowing down businesses, everything from dishwasher manufacturing to cars to everything in between. And so, yeah, maybe that's good for Intel in the next few years, and hopefully New Mexico will continue to receive not only this investment, but the ongoing investment that's always necessary in that semiconductor and broader technology field.
So let's get back to politics again. We've got a woman who's now the Secretary of Interior named Deb Haaland, who was our first district congresswoman. And of course, we've got a race coming up here on that. But think about it. She allowed Joe Biden to put a stoppage of oil and gas leases right now. I guess there's a moratorium. It's killing our state. If this thing continues, that another factor of where 35% of the income or the royalties in the permanent fund and the monies that support the state comes from the oil and gas industry. Can you imagine, why would you, if you were a person in New Mexico, why would you vote for the Democrats that's killing our economy? And the governor won't stand up to Joe Biden. She did ask Joe Biden to give us a special relief or something.
What do we call that? The Pope, a special dispensation, yes.
So why would these people continue going into the voting booth and voting for these people? We're 48th, we're down at the bottom, and right now in the southeastern part of the state where the economy was booming, where they had oil and gas, that doesn't look good right now. And because 55% of the oil and gas leases is on federal lands. So now we've got this woman. Now Deb Haaland might be a nice, decent person. And I'm glad she's Native American. Hey, my family's part Osage Native American. I have nothing against the Native Americans. And please don't take this wrong. But I'll tell you what, she's on the wrong side of this issue. And I'm telling you why we keep on voting these people in. And I got to believe people love working for the government. Now, my DNA doesn't say that. I've always come from a family that made things happen. We were entrepreneurs. We went out and started businesses. We created jobs, paychecks. That was the way I was brought up as a kid. You made things happen. Nobody wanted the government on your back. My dad used to say, when people work for the government, they do enough to keep their boss off their backs. Maybe that's not true all the time. There's a lot of civil service people who do serve the government are patriotic people, I guess. But I'm telling you, they are cut from a different cloth than a guy like me and you, because we are guys who make it happen. We try to create jobs. I do a lot of advertising sales. I'm on straight commission. Nobody pays me unless I go out and open the door and go out and see people. I don't depend on a government check or some government. And as you know, if you work for these government agencies, it's awful hard to fire somebody. I've known so many people that work for the city of Albuquerque and state, and they try to get rid of them, but it's so hard. So you tell me, what a plush job. Maybe I should have gone down the government route, but I was brought up, hey, let's make things happen. Let's create a payroll. Let's create a new business. Let's create something. I didn't come from that cloth. Now, I'm not going to put down anybody who wants to work for the government, but believe me, Wally, do you think these government employees could go out and create businesses? Some of them have done that. There's been some government people who went out and created new industry. I'm not saying but very few. Am I right, Wally?
Well, and it's interesting, Marty, you bring up a good point. There's a certain temperament that's definitely required to be an entrepreneur, to be a small business person, to do that. And there's also a temperament that's probably helpful to work in a very bureaucratic organization like government. And that's one side of it. So, but also, we're talking about what are the incentives? So if, one of the things we have in New Mexico is that government salaries tend to be higher than their private industry equivalents, where in places that have a much stronger private economy, the Bay Area, Austin, Texas, Colorado Springs, Denver, that's not necessarily the case. Uh, I, I've over the years actually seen this phenomenon, in other states that are more business oriented. Somebody who works for the government would say, I work for the government. And everyone's like, oh, almost poor you working for the government. Where in New Mexico, if you say, I don't work for the government, I have my own business, it's almost like, oh, poor you. You didn't get the good government job. So, that's one thing. And to circle back to oil and gas, I just want to say it's very interesting. Right now, I think right now this is kind of a farcical theater that we're playing right now with these oil and gas leases, and the reason is that the oil and gas companies have a lot of leases down there that they are working, and they can continue to develop for the most part for many years to come. But in the interim, if they stop issuing permits for rights of way, and I've seen statements from various parts of the current administration in Washington, we're not going to allow any more oil and gas pipe. Well, if they're going to take this, which is right in the very short term, more symbolic than actual, this not doing new drilling leases, but if they're going to really make that stick for a period of time, and more importantly, not do permits and grant rights of ways to develop put the pipes in the ground that's necessary to get the oil and gas to market. Yeah. The words of Apollo 13, Houston, we have a problem. We are going to have a big problem as a state. And I see all the time many political people in New Mexico talk about wanting to diversify our economy. There's two ways to do that. We can have a diverse economy by adding more and new types of businesses and new industries. That's one way. But if you want to take away the impact of oil and gas because you say we need a more diverse economy, cutting out an industry that's operating in this state that does so much from an employment and a taxation and economic driver of the state, that would be very interesting. Our state budgets have gone from in the 1, 2, 3 billion up in the 5, 6, 7 and beyond $billion. If this is going to be real and stick long term in Washington, and they really are going to make it all but impossible to continue to operate in New Mexico, we will have an economic upheaval of the likes that I don't think we've seen in my lifetime. So we'll have to see if this happens. And so I'm not trying to minimize what's happening, but what I would say is it's been more symbolic to this point than really, what would you say, really hitting us, hitting the industry where it lives. But if you'll do this, you'll do the next thing. And, and in Santa Fe, there's always somebody that's going to ban fracking. That's always the thing. And I saw the legislator that introduced it this year was complaining that people were getting on her about that. She goes, well, I just was talking about banning fracking. It's like, well, what does that mean? That gets rid of all new oil wells that are coming in the state. And so you got to keep drilling to make that happen. But Marty, did you know that over the past 70 days, the number of drilling rigs operating in the state of New Mexico has actually increased? It's gone from in the 60s to now the latest Baker Hughes. I was just looking. I don't want to say I'm an economics nerd, but I have an app on my phone that has the number of drilling rigs in the various states across the United States and the world. The number of drilling rigs has actually gone up. So will they pull back from Washington? I hope it's one of these things where I'm not a big fan of this, but it's like we're doing the big splashy headline about how we're canceling the industry and we're going to get rid of it. And then it's like in the paper, you run a bad headline on page 1, you do your retraction on page C23. I sort of think that might happen, but I don't have any inside track on that. And if it does happen, we are going to be facing some serious economic consequences here in the state of New Mexico.
So let me ask you this question. I've in the last 2 or 3 years, I didn't know a lot about fracking, so I started going out and talking to people in the oil industry. I talked to environmentalists, and my conclusion: fracking doesn't hurt. It doesn't contaminate the water. I mean, the odds are so slim, and the fact is, anybody that talks about the effects of fracking, I don't think they know what they're talking about, or they have not. They're getting their information from some other source. And I'm telling you right now, here's the thing I really can't understand. If we can have an intelligent debate, the issues, can the Democrats hold their own? I don't think they can. If we had and if the media in this state actually took a debate and put it on television and get people to watch it, they would look ridiculous. They're on the wrong side on a lot of issues. And I'm telling you right now, if this thing gets worse in the oil and gas industry, yeah, what you're talking about, the leases are going up on private land, but not on federal land.
And they have some leases that they've already done in the past. Just because you get a lease, you don't put the hole in the ground the next day.
Right.
It takes a matter of months and years to develop new leases. So
they don't understand. And here's the thing: is Governor Lujan, Grissom Lujan, the thing with her is she knows that she doesn't have to kowtow to the small businesses, because she knows that as long as she gets these government people voting for her, she's going to win. And the only way the Republicans they're going to have to cut into that, and it's hard to do. Now, just think about it. Right now, there's 11 congressional state house districts that are they lost between 3 to 7 points. If the Republican can turn those 11 House seats around, they control the House. There's 6 state Senate seats, or 7, I think, that are between 3 to 5 percentage points. If you turn those around, New Mexico controls the state Senate and state House. Hasn't been done since 1930, even though there's been a few times where the conservatives got together and controlled the House for maybe 2 years. But the fact is, we've got the key right now is you got to find appealing candidates. You got to have candidates that people like. It's the likability factor, and every county has an issue. As Tip O'Neill, the famous Democrat, I guess he was the Democrat.
He was speaker,
of the
wasn't
House.
he? Yeah.
He always said all politics starts locally, and you got to focus on what makes people move in your local politics. But the fact is, these people keep on voting these people, and for some reason they don't feel threatened, and they put more money into education. We just spend more money on kindergarten and preschool stuff, but it's not getting any results. Pumping more money, it's not getting it done. Am I right, Wally?
Well, yeah. Well, you have to say that on an education, in the past decade, really 15 years, we've gone from some of the lowest teacher salaries and some of the lowest per pupil spending to really up there. Where APS is last I heard is like 18,000 a student. And they're on their way to 20,000 a student. So it's not the money, but it's the achievement. And you just reminded me of, what does, we're talking about, why does a place grow? And if you're not growing, and let me just say, there's multiple ways to grow. You don't need to always grow real fast and have boomtown conditions and add, hundreds of thousands of people per year to, a small state like New Mexico to have good, solid growth. But it's more than just growth in people as well. It's like, what are you doing? How is your economy? What are the jobs that those people have? What are the businesses that are being developed, and what's going on there? And then you nailed it earlier in your show. It's like the bedrock upon which New Mexico is based. there's really only a couple of choices, and you could say it's oil and gas. I think that's a distant second. Is it's government spending is number one, so it's government number one, oil and gas number two, and probably everything else a distant third. Those the film industry, because of the type of industry it is, it gets a lot of attention. But when you look at the true economic impact, not real big. We just passed legalized quote unquote recreational marijuana. That it's going to do something, but is it going to be a big net positive for the state? I have my suspicions. I'm not anti legalization. Frankly, it's one of those. I think that it's probably better than putting the consumers of that product in jail. We had our own, what do you say, prohibition of marijuana worked maybe as well, maybe a little better actually than prohibition of alcohol, but we're kind of
so Wally,
we don't have a good track record on those. But is that going to be the driver? I don't know what it's going to be. So
let's go. We got a break for our sponsors. And Jimmy, we've got, are you ready to put up our video on we've got this environmental product. And by the way, I know you're really close with the Restaurant Association, Wally. This product is really killing it out there. You just plug it into a 110 outlet, covers 3,000 square feet, and it kills everything, Wally. And I was over at Rex restaurant this morning, and I saw somebody, and I said, look, this, I could tell that they're all they're doing cleaning, but this device is going to work, and it's called Active Pure. Are you ready? Are we ready to show that spot, Jimmy? I think we're gonna start.
Virus that causes COVID-19 and other pathogens are reminders that bad air can kill. You want protection to keep you healthy and give you peace of mind, but you won't settle for just any protection. You want the best out there. Active Pure. The Active Pure system has origins in the NASA space program. It's even been inducted into the Space Foundation Hall of Fame. Active Pure is used daily by hospitals, schools, sports arenas, restaurants, government buildings, homes, and more. So how does it work? The Active Pure system dispatches invisible supercharged submicroscopic particles at tremendous speed. The particles collide with viruses, bacteria, and other nasty things and immediately turn them into harmless byproducts. Active Pure works immediately on both air and surfaces. It comes in portable units built for any space, from gigantic ballrooms to elevators. It's affordable, easy to install, and virtually maintenance-free. It's like invisible personal protective equipment, or PPE, for you and your pets. Sounds too good to be true? Independent FDA-compliant lab testing has shown that within minutes, Active Pure neutralizes more than 99.9% of pathogens, including the virus that causes COVID-19. The Active Pure Medical Guardian, powered by the same Active Pure technology as our other products, has been cleared by the FDA as a Class II medical device. There's only one Active Pure. Beware of claims for other systems like HEPA, bipolar ionizers, and UV light. They're passive and slow. Some trap pathogens, but don't destroy them. In fact, many of them are so dangerous people can't even be in the same room while they operate. No system cleans the air faster, safer, or more effectively than Active Pure. To give your family and your customers peace of mind, choose Active Pure, protecting lives with air you can trust. To get Active Pure for your home, office, store, or organization, contact your local distributor.
You can text that number. Let's put the number up there again, Jimmy. If you want to call that number, or you can text it, you can get more information. There we are, 505-207. I think it's 3877. Is that correct?
8877. There we go.
8877. And by the way, if you want to go up there and text America to that number, go ahead and you'll get more information. And Wally, let me tell you this. I've been looking at devices in the last year, how to kill COVID, and we've looked at spray systems, and they are effective, but the cost of these spray systems the value is really costly. This system here is about a cost of a laptop, less than a new laptop. You plug it in, you get 3,000 square footage. It does work. We've put it in at a restaurant. We put it in a gym. And I'm telling you right now, Wally, I mean, I know what these restaurants and these people are going through, but a lot of them can't afford some of these expensive devices or have somebody come in and spray every day. It's pretty expensive. This really does the job economically. I really do believe we've got a great product here.
No, it looks good. Looks good to me, Marty.
And
I don't want those dangerous slow products that are going to kill me. That's for sure. So it sounds intriguing.
By the way, if the Pentagon's using it, if NASA is putting them in their buildings, if Major League Baseball has these devices in every one of their buildings and stuff, so what does that tell you? Okay, yeah. I'm just telling you, and that's probably and I know a lot of the restaurants couldn't go out and spend $18,000 per restaurant for the spray system. Here's a system about $1,000 or less you could put in, and it doesn't, and it just put in a 110 outlet. And it really does the job. So anyway, that's please call that number again. And I'm going to tell you right now, and we will set up a demo for you if you're interested. So with that, let's get back to where we were talking, Wally. I'm telling you right now, we've got some hard choices coming up. At this point, people are not going back to work because they're getting all these government supplement, $300 a month plus state unemployment, and that's going to last till probably September for the federal government. So maybe we'll have more people come on board. And then number two, I drove down Central Avenue from downtown Central. I drove all the way up to Louisiana on Central, and I counted at least 31 businesses closed down.
Oh yeah,
31 businesses, and a lot of them are probably not going to come back. And you know what? Tell us what's going on in the restaurant industry. I mean, we've lost a lot of businesses permanently, right?
Yeah, there's been hundreds in New Mexico, and there's others that are teetering. There are some new programs that are out there. The feds have a program that may be helpful and effective for some, but if you're already out of business, that's not going to do you any good. And the other thing in the restaurant industry, a lot like in COVID, certain businesses did very well in COVID. It's like if you were never forced to close down, the big box stores did very well. The businesses, the restaurants with drive-thrus did very well. The segment that got killed is fine dining, the white tablecloth people. And there's not a lot of those in New Mexico, but they were hit hard. Bars, the same way. There's bars that have gone bankrupt, and we'll see a lot more go bankrupt, I predict, over the coming months. And then the smaller restaurants, the mom and pops with 1 or 2 locations hit very, very hard. So we'll have to see. The other thing is I've just been amazed with the resiliency of some of these to go from, in something like a Wex is a good example. They don't have a drive-through, and breakfast is traditionally, you do drive-through breakfast tends to be a breakfast burrito, not the sort of, huevos rancheros that a place like Wex serve. But man, they went to a takeout model. They put tents outside when that was required under the, under the crazy rules that were put into place. And some of these just to see the responsiveness of them, and and smaller restaurants as well. I was trying to think. There's just a lot of small ones that would do stuff that they never thought they would be able to do, and they did just to survive. And now hopefully that, things will get back on board. But as you say, we struggled on the way down because they had to lay people off, and now they're struggling on the way up because they're having a hard time hiring people. So,
and of course, the government people didn't sacrifice. They didn't take a pay cut. Not one government employee got a 10% Matter of fact, they got raises for some people especially in the education area. Nothing against people that work for the government. I hope nobody comes down on me, but you're not, obviously they're not cutting government employees back. The people that got hurt were the people who went out and got loans, gambled, started a business, entrepreneur, they created paychecks. They're the ones who are getting hurt. Now, some of them had to be really, some of these ones that are going to survive, they'll probably be a lot tougher, more resilient than they were in the past. Of course, we lost some good businesses. And so who knows? But what I'm saying is the people who took it in the chin, not the people who are, they get a paycheck every 2 weeks, every month. It's the people who had to create jobs, businesses, especially in the restaurant business. And so what that's saying, and you're right, now they're having a hard time getting employees because the ones that are laid off are getting supplement by the government, and maybe that will last till September. Now the governor of our state, she thinks we're going to go in 9 weeks. We're going to go what, full capacity? I don't know. What do you think? You think it's going to happen?
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe we'll have some more colors. I don't know what goes beyond turquoise. Maybe we're going to go to copper, silver, gold, and platinum. I don't know. I just don't get a real good feeling when I think about her, letting go of these quote emergency health orders. This has been a long emergency. It's been a long, long, long emergency. And Marty, I do want to say that, the reaction to COVID, boy, there's a lot at stake, but they certainly did put a lot of stock in the quote unquote science and data. And yet when you look at it, a lot of places that maybe took different paths using the same data, the same science that we did, had economies that fared better and had people that fared as well as we did, in a lot of cases better than we did, with having their economies more open. So yeah, there was
we've got North Dakota.
Yeah, South Dakota went. Yeah, they were the poster child. Texas largely, Florida largely.
So what's how ridiculous is the Democrats are? Joe Biden gives a speech last week to speak to the joint sessions, right? Everybody in the room has already had the vaccine. Everyone's been vaccinated.
Oh, and there's multiple seats in between them. There were very few people in there.
And they all wore a mask and they look stupid. Yeah. Okay, now think about it. And then his own what is it? The
CDC.
DC, yeah. The CDC came out and said, look, you don't need, if everybody's vaccinated, you don't need a mask, especially if you're outdoors. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I walk my dog every day, and I was walking in my neighborhood, and some woman was running by, and she was running, huffing and puffing, jogging, breathing hard with a mask. And I said, hey, ma'am, you need to slow down. And then she started lecturing me, where's my mask? You know what I mean? And what I'm saying is, now, I mean, hopefully we'll get the herd, even though the virus is out of control in countries like India. There's places like in France, they had to revamp, but obviously they're not getting vaccine. They're way behind on the vaccine thing. But don't you think that looked ridiculous? They had a joint session. Everybody in the room was vaccinated. They all had their 2 shots or whatever, and they still wore a mask. What kind of what do you think of that, Wally?
Yeah, and I saw a poll today. I hope this isn't right, Marty, that 25% of the people think that we ought to wear masks as late as into 2023, and some say forever. We should wear masks forever. It's like if they were effective, that would be one thing, but just look across the country, look across the world, places that have had high compliance, high mask usage versus places that haven't. And, maybe we still have a lot of data to crunch and a lot of statistics to calculate. But if you look at a lot of those charts, it's pretty tough to see how that would have made a big difference. And, there were a lot of scientists that said early on that masks were, basically just palliative. It makes people feel good about things and makes them feel a little safer, but probably not doing a whole lot. And I think at the end of the day, when all of the numbers are in and the votes are counted, not to go off into another highly political area, I have a feeling that masks are not going to be viewed even as positively as they are today in the general public once we work on what the real impact of those was.
So I go in every 5 months and do a checkup, and I went to see my doctor 3 weeks ago, and she's I've known her for a long time, a highly respected medical doctor here in New Mexico. And we had a frank to frank talk about the mask, and let me tell you this. Now she works for. I don't want to bring up the medical clinic she works for because number one, they're not my sponsor, and number two, I don't want to start pitting each medical clinic against each other. But she says everybody in their clinic has had the shot, the vaccine.
Mm-hmm.
And they had not one incident, not one person's come down. And she told me, since she's been seeing patients, not one patient has come in that's had the vaccine that came down with the COVID-19. And then number two, she says, Marty, those masks are useless unless you've got the N40 mask that costs $40, the one that they wear in the surgeon rooms, the real she said they're not that effective. Maybe if somebody really was coughing, they might stop something. But really, if you want to know the truth, the virus gets out of that. And if they have it, they have it. So the protection is to build an immune system up. And she just says it's ridiculous, but and I don't want to put her name out there because she might get fired if she says something. That's what's so bad about it, is these people are looking to get down on these people. But the fact is, not one person has come down with the virus that's been vaccinated at the clinic, and they have over 150 clinic workers, not one. And then one person she have known of in the whole state that had the virus got the virus back, but it was just a very it was like a 1 day little fever, and that was it. Okay, so even if it does come here, you're not going to be going to the ventilator at the hospital.
All right, but we have to see more of each other's faces without those masks, Marty. So I don't know. Saying,
we still want people to protect each other, but I just think this is getting so. You think we're going to be having this mask controversy in July
of this year? Yeah, I think we will. I'm not going to be. I hope I'm wrong, but yeah, I have a feeling that. Well, and didn't the governor say we'll have? We're going to be able to do things differently, but she didn't say it was going to be game over. And I have a feeling that's going to be a much longer process. So it's almost like the betting pool. I'd say. Right now, I would need almost 10-1 odds to say there's no mass of any kind July 1st. I think there will be. So
you're probably right. I'm hoping they get away from it, and I encourage people. Not everybody. I don't think you should be forced to take the vaccine. That's your priority, to do that. But I think the vaccine is going to help get the virus out. But even though, hey, there's countries like India, there's some places out there it's going rampant right now in some plases. Yeah, they don't have a lot of controls.
Yeah, and it is interesting. It's one of those. These next comments are going to be apolitical. The United States did a good job encouraging development of the vaccine and getting it out there. Better than Europe. Europe, the economic union in Europe did a lot of bidding processes, and they were much slower, and they got to the same place that the US got, but not as quickly. We got there more quickly, and that was fantastic. So,
I hope 10 years from now, when they look at this 10 years from now, hopefully I'll still be alive. They will look back and they're going to credit Donald Trump for really going warp speed on this thing. I think he'll get a lot of credit down the line. I really do, Wally, about the vaccine, him putting all the efforts. And of course, it makes me sick when the Joe Biden gets up there and starts claiming that getting credit. I'm not, the only thing I can say about Joe Biden, just keep on pushing the vaccine and maybe more people will get vaccinated. But
Yep.
I think Trump's going to get credit for doing that. Okay. And so anyway, we'll see down the line if history will write itself differently in 10 years from now.
Yeah, absolutely.
And with that saying, Jimmy, I think we're running out of time, but before we get off the air, before we end this podcast, we've got the New Mexico State tournament, and finally we're going to have a basketball tournament. And of course, we started last night. This is being taped on Tuesday, but I'm so glad that we're going to have a state basketball tournament without canceling, because last year we were able to finish it just in time before the COVID really hit big in New Mexico. So we're going to have a tournament, and I'm happy the kids are going to be able to play. What do you think, Wally? You played the state tournament.
Oh, well, I played in the pre-state tournament. That's as far as I ever made it. So, yeah, I think it's fantastic that we're back playing basketball, even if they have to wear masks. I'm not so sure about that part, but yeah, I'm glad they're out there playing, Marty.
As a matter of fact, just to show you the interest, we've had over 189,000 people that's gone up and paid to watch these games, all these sports starting in March. That's pretty good.
No, that's yeah. There's a lot of demand for that, and people really do love their high school athletics here in New Mexico. That's pretty good.
And with that said, my Sandia Matadors have a big game tonight against Crystal Heritage. I think the Matadors are on a roll. I hope they can make it to the Saturday tournament. It's going to be Saturday night at the Pit. They are going to play the finals, the girls and boys finals, Friday and Saturday at the Pit. So that's going to be, and I think now, since the governor relaxed it, I think they can have 25% in the stadium.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's great. So
at least we'll get some pit noise. And God knows, it's one of those Native Americans like Shiprock or Gallup, how the one thing I love about the Native Americans in New Mexico, they love basketball. They have a passion for it. Don't you think?
Yeah. There's no doubt. My middle daughter played at Cibola High School, and, at any level, one of the most intense experiences and memorable things was when Cibola High would travel to Gallup to play Gallup High School in girls basketball. It's amazing the support they get, how much the community supports them. The atmosphere is just beyond comparison. It's amazing. And yeah, so you have schools like Kirtland Central, Shiprock, Gallup in the state tournament. They're going to bring the fans.
Navajo Mission.
Yeah.
I just love the Native Americans' passion for basketball. They love cross country too, but let me tell you, that's what makes our state unique. We have a great population of Hispanic, Native Americans, African Americans, and we really do have a blended rainbow coalition. But it's the beauty when you see the Native Americans, they love that sport. And I'm hoping one of those schools make it to Saturday, Friday night this week. Okay. And by the way, if people are watching this podcast, you can go up to the National High School Network, NFHS.com, and you can go up and watch any state championship game tonight for the rest of the week. I think it's $10 or $10 or for a monthly pass, or $10 a game, but you can buy a $30 pass for the whole tournament. But anyway, go out there and you'll be able to watch these games. ProView Networks is doing the production. We're going to have our play-by-play guys. And Wally, nothing better than a great basketball game, especially if it goes into double overtime. What do you think?
Absolutely. No doubt about it. And my heart goes out to the Silver City Fighting Colts. They lost today. The boys did. So, but the fact is they were at the big dance. So congratulations to the Colts, my high school alma mater.
And this year is probably the most difficult ever to get to the dance because they only had 8 seats for each district, each level from 1A to 5A. So it was hard. And there was a lot of good teams that did not make it, like La Cueva boys. A lot of teams didn't make the top 8.
Yeah.
And a lot of them probably deserved to be in there, but they only could figure out 8. Yeah. So with that saying, Jimmy, let's get our sponsors up there. I want to thank Everguard Roofing and Solar, and I want to thank Extreme Clean. I want to thank all the businesses down on Central Avenue, what we call 66 Route 66. We've got Geckos, we've got Farina's, we got the Artichoke Cafe, all these great restaurants. And Wally, thank you for coming on. I hope we're able to get some insight out there. I know there's some of my views are not probably liked by some people, but I'm just calling it the way I see it. And I'm always open to debate anybody on any subject. You are too, Wally. I'm willing to debate the issues if somebody really wants to talk seriously about the issues.
Well, I appreciate you having me on, Marty. It was great to talk with you.
All right. Well, listen, the best gift I can give to anybody, to you, Wally, to anybody, is the gift of laughter and love. It doesn't cost you a dime. All right, guys. We'll see you next time on American Talk It Up.